Krista Moser here. Today I'm going to share with you my latest free pattern, what I'm calling strips and stripes. This is it here. It's very simple to do. It's basically one fabric, that's your main, and then several strips. So that's how it gets its name. The striped fabric is my main, and then the strips are 2.5 inch strips. You can do it with a jelly roll or orphan strips, anything you have laying around, plus a striped fabric or a cute fabric that's like novelty. Be perfect for a big print. In this case, I thought it would be fun to use this really bold wide stripe. So what you're going to do is you're going to sew two 2.5 inch strips together, just like this. Now this makes a strip set that is 4.5 inches wide. You're going to need 10 of these for the lap size behind me. Now in this pattern, it's a free PDF download. I've done 3 sizes. So a baby size, this lap size, and then a twin size. So we'll talk about mostly what's needed for the lap size, because that is what I'm working on here. So here we've got 2.5 inch strips sewn together. I went ahead and just did a variety of blues. So I've got some light blues and this brighter dark blue, and then turquoise, because that's kind of fun to throw in there. A little whimsical, and then the red and white stripe as my kind of main print. So these are strip sets are 4.5 inches wide from edge to edge. Now what I've done here before cutting is I've actually doubled it over, which is not typical of my style. I usually cut through a single layer, but in this case, having these strip sets folded means we get a mirror image cut from the start, and we do need that. So that's why I've done that. I folded it over. When I was sewing these strip sets, I did press my seams open. I like to do that for this kind of thing, especially when I'm going to cut pieces from that, because it makes for really flat strip sets. So that's what I've done. I've pressed the seam open, going down the middle. I've folded it in half, so my selvage edges are down here at the left end. And I'm going to line up my edges so everything is really straight on top of each other. That's good. Now I need to cut the selvage ends off so they're nice and clean. That's going to be our starting cut. So I'm just taking my little ruler here. I've got it kind of lined up on the mat. So I'm going to clean off my selvage edges just like that. Clean cut. First cut is this little wedge end. And that cut is actually used to fill in the top and bottom edges of the quilt, so it's not a wasted piece. We can use it so when our angle pieces that are the bigger pieces come down, we can fill it in with this little wedge. So what you're going to use is a 60-degree diamond ruler. This is the large ruler. It is necessary because the pieces are pretty big on this one. So this first cut, we only need the 4.5 inch line. But what I'm going to do is the 4.5 inch triangle line coming across the tip here. And then you'll notice down the middle of the ruler there are 3 lines. One that's dead center, and then we've got a 1/4 inch to the right and a 1/4 inch to the left, and those are both their dashed lines. So in order for us to have a seam allowance, we have dead center, and then we're going to go a 1/4 inch to the left of that to the dashed line there, and that builds in a seam allowance here. So that's what I've lined up, the dashed left line, and then the 4.5 inch line across the bottom. So this little piece will cut. And then before moving too much, I'm just going to swivel this piece around, and I'm going to use the flat tip of the ruler to trim that tip off. And you'll see what you end up with, because this strip set was layered, is you get a mirror image, like a right and a left, and that's perfect for filling in the top and bottom of these strips. So that is why we cut through 2 layers, folded in half. Okay, here, so we've got that first cut. Now, taking the ruler, turn it around. So in this case, the large hanging hole would be pointed to me. And I'm going to run the 8.5 inch line. This is a dashed line going pretty much through the middle of the ruler. It's actually offset by a 1/4 inch from the points. Also, that builds in your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So the 8.5 inch line here, there's a white dashed line that hits the bottom. That's considered the 4 inch line, but there's no markings that say 4 inches. It's right between the 3.5 and the 4.5. It's just a white dashed line. So 8.5 across the top, the 4 inch dashed white line there, and then I'm just going to trim and nip these little tips off while I'm here. Turn the ruler 180 degrees all the way around. Make sure nothing shifted. And now what I'm doing is the 8.5 inch line across the bottom and that white dashed line across the top. Trim again. and nip and nip. So that's 2 sets of trapezoids there and there. Now from this middle section, I can open it up. I can get 1 more trapezoid. So each strip set gets you 5. And that is a pretty good yield. You can see there's not a lot of waste here. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of clean up. Not taking much off, but some fuzz. Sometimes if your strip set gets a little curved, you have a cleanup cut to do. Okay, scoop that to the side. So what I've got are trapezoids. Some of them have the bright blue on the right and some on the left because of the opposite cuts, top cuts and bottom cuts. That's good. We're going to set those aside. Now for the stripe, it's the same cuts, but it's a solid piece of fabric. It's not a strip set. So here again, we're going to start with the end, trimming off that selvage and getting that same little wedge cut to give us the mirror image that we need. So there's trimming the selvage off, taking the 4.5 inch triangle line here and that left dashed line, just like before. So I'm lining up 4.5 along the bottom, the left dash down the left clean edge, trim, trim, swivel this, trim these tips. This little trimming of the tips is going to be important later, so, you know, you might be pretty good at eyeballing it, but I encourage you to try this trick. You will never go back. Okay, 8.5 inch line here across the top, that 4 inch white dash line on the bottom. And snip these tips. We'll make stacks. Should get 5 out of this. Just like so. These pieces are really big. So this quilt is easily a weekend project because it just does not take very long. Big strip sets, big strips, resulting in big pieces, and it goes together pretty quick. And here we get 1 more from that folded center section. Usually I would press the crease out before cutting, but you get the idea. So we've got a little crease in there. Okay, so here you've got all of your strip sets and strips cut. What you need is 10 4.5 inch striped strips. Say that 10 times fast. And then 10 strip sets like this. And that's enough for the lap size. The twin size needs twice that many. So this is how we're going to lay these things out. If you are building rows, let me put this stuff aside. You're building rows here, and what we're going to start with is our stripes. So here, I'm just going to kind of show you the layout. Staggering the stripes, almost checkerboard-like, right? So this would be row 1. I've got some more here. So I'll kind of make a few more. So every other is done with these stripes, leaving these openings. Trapezoids, so they all kind of face the same direction, just like this. Do another row on top, just like that. And then we've got our strip sets cut into trapezoids. So these turn the opposite direction. So here's row 1. And I'm going to lay these in to fill this out so you can really see it. Variety is good. You want to mix up your colors and keep playing around with your layout. So here you see row 1, row 2, row 3. This could be row 4. Maybe we need some different variety. Gives you some idea. Let's grab this one. Okay, that gives you some idea. Okay, so the way it's assembled, I guess we need one more down here, don't we? The way it's assembled into rows, and this is where those flat tips come in handy, because as you're sewing your rows, you are going to be taking these trapezoids and lifting them up to sew to each other. So it's this seam here. Now you're going to take this and fold it down on top of that, and notice what you get. flat tip here, matching up. So there's no guesswork. When you sew that seam, you've got a flat tip at either end. You're going to do your 1/4 inch seam allowance. It will then be pressed open or pressed out, and then the next one happens just like this. Flat tip here, you press that out, same thing, moving on down. So there's really no guesswork, and once your seam is sewn and then it gets pressed out, all your edges line up perfectly. So even with these angled seams, you get a really good clean match on top and bottom edge, which is really nice when you go to sew these to each other. So once you've got your pieces all sewn, here's what you do for pressing. So this is the way to do it, because these intersections will nest if on every one of these seams, what I did is I pressed them towards the striped fabric. So you could press them towards the strip sets, that'd be fine too, but just be consistent. So I just went in and I pressed each of these seams towards the red and white, Then when I get to the next row, it's towards the red and white again, and so when this row joins that row, you've got nesting seams. So I actually have a couple of those done, and I will show you here quickly. How that actually works out. So I did a couple, and here you can also see the end caps. So remember I was talking about these end pieces, because you've got your trapezoids laid out, alternating, and then the end caps of each of your rows are your little wedge pieces. So on row 1, I used a wedge piece, that's the stripe, just like that, and row 2, I used the wedge piece, that's the strip set wedge piece. And on the other end of the row, it alternates, so that's where your mirror image comes in, because you'll need the other side for the other end. But once you've done this, now this is row 1 and row 2, and you'll notice here I have them pressed the way that I did. Seams out towards the red stripe, seams in towards the red stripe, and so when I lift these two up and I go to put them together, these intersections, they just nest. So you almost don't even have to pin, because if you've got nesting seams, you can really kind of just feel your way, you know, maybe pin the first few until you get the hang of it, and then just keep going like that. So like I said, it's a very quick project because it doesn't take long. Once you get your layout and do all of your colors, well then you can just go to town. So of course, like I said, I used a stripe fabric. You need 10 strips that are 4.5 inches wide of your stripe, and then you need 10 strip sets, so that'd be 22.5 inch strips total for your strip sets. Now that's for the lap size. And of course, I've got that all included in the pattern for all 3 sizes. So I'll put the link to that pattern in the description box below this video, so you can download it for free and just start right away. If you like the fabric that I used, of course, you're not going to be surprised that I did put together some kits for those. So just using the exact same fabrics that I did 2 different turquoises, 2 different light blues, 3 darker blues. Of course, the red binding is included, and that stripe fabric. So if you like what I did and you want to get your hands on this, I'll put a link to this kit in the description box as well. 2 kits makes the twin size quilt. 1 kit makes the one, the lap size behind me. So you can go crazy. Well, I hope you like this project and you're inspired to try something really fun, fast, easy to do, and use your Creative Grid 60-degree diamond ruler one more time. Thanks for watching.